The most powerful weapon on earth is not a gun, it's not an army, and it's not money. It is a trained, disciplined, and educated mind. You can take everything from a person, their job, their home, their status, but if you leave them with a renewed mind, they'll rebuild it all again. Why? Because true change doesn't start on the outside. It begins in the battlefield of the mind. Most people are imprisoned not by bars, but by beliefs. They live inside mental cages built by fear, past trauma, and the opinions of others. The tragedy is not that we go through storms, it's that we never teach our minds how to sail through them. You don't need a new life. You need a new mindset. Because when your mind is educated to believe in purpose, in process, and in power, there is nothing, absolutely nothing you cannot overcome. Have you ever wondered why some people can be crushed and still rise again while others collapse under the slightest pressure? It's not luck. It's not talent. It's not even prayer alone. It is mental training. A mind anchored in truth cannot be shaken by circumstance. When your thoughts are disciplined, your emotions stop dictating your future. When your mind is educated in truth, it overrides fear with faith, doubt with clarity, and weakness with wisdom. You were not created to be controlled by what happens around you. You were created to command what happens within you, and the mind is your command center. If the enemy can take your thoughts, he doesn't have to take your life. He lets you live defeated, distracted, and discouraged. That's why the greatest war you'll ever fight is the one between your ears. But if you win there, you win everywhere. So let me ask you, what are you feeding your mind daily? What thoughts are you rehearsing in the privacy of your own head? Because whatever you meditate on, you magnify. And whatever you magnify will master you. If you want to overcome anything in life, disappointment, failure, fear, you must first overcome the thoughts that keep you bound to them. The future is not waiting on your circumstances to change, it's waiting on your mind to change. Everything you're facing in life, whether it's fear, failure, rejection, disappointment, or pressure, is not first a battle in your environment, it is a battle in your mind. The real war is not on your job, not in your family, not in your finances, and not even in your body. The war is happening in your thoughts. Because what controls your mind will ultimately control your life. Your mind is the headquarters of your destiny. If the mind is not trained, not renewed, not anchored in truth, then every challenge will seem like a mountain and every delay will feel like defeat. But if your mind is armed with purpose, disciplined by truth, and educated by wisdom, you become unshakable, even when the world around you is shaking. When people collapse under pressure, it's rarely because they lacked resources. It's often because they lack the internal structure, the mental resilience to hold up under stress. That's why storms don't destroy everyone. The same storm that makes one person drown will make another rise. The difference is not in the storm, the difference is in the mind. And the mind is shaped long before the storm ever comes. That's why training your mind isn't optional, it's essential. You don't train your mind in the crisis, you train it before the crisis. Because when trouble shows up, your mind won't rise to the occasion, it will fall to the level of its preparation. Think about this, the mind is the first gate the enemy tries to enter. If he can sow confusion, fear, discouragement, or doubt in your thoughts, he doesn't even need to touch your circumstances. He knows that if your thoughts are weak, your actions will follow. That's why one of the greatest strategies of darkness is to get you to think wrong. Because once your thinking is off, your decisions, your emotions, your relationships, even your prayers begin to follow a distorted path. So if you don't win the battle in your head, you won't win it anywhere else. Your mind is also the filter through which you interpret everything in life. If your filter is contaminated by fear, you'll see opportunity as a threat. If it's polluted with insecurity, you'll see correction as rejection. But if your mind is renewed and aligned with truth, you'll start to see challenges as growth, resistance as strength building, and delay as preparation. You begin to walk through fire without being burned. Not because the fire got cooler, but because your mind got stronger. When you educate your mind with truth, truth about who you are, truth about your purpose, truth about what God deposited in you, you start living from the inside out, not from the outside in. One of the reasons many people stay stuck is because they keep trying to fix their life without fixing their thoughts. They keep addressing the symptoms, bad habits, toxic relationships, financial struggles, without ever confronting the root, a mindset that accepts defeat, tolerates mediocrity, and avoids responsibility. But when you begin to educate your mind, you stop making excuses. You stop asking better questions. You start attracting better answers. You stop reacting emotionally and start responding wisely. You stop being a victim of life and become a steward of it. So if your mind is where the real battle is fought, then it must also become the place where your greatest victory begins. Train it, guard it, educate it, feed it truth daily. And when the storm comes, and it will, you won't panic, you'll lead, you won't collapse, you'll rise, because your victory didn't start in your situation, it started in your mind. Circumstances are loud. They shout disappointment, lack, and fear. But what separates those who overcome from those who are overcome is not what's happening around them, it's what's happening within them. An educated mind has the power to take chaos and turn it into clarity. It doesn't panic in confusion, it processes. It doesn't fold under pressure, it focuses. You see, when your mind is educated, shaped by principles, not emotions, you can walk into situations others would run from and build something beautiful out of it. Because you're not reacting from your feelings, responding from wisdom. Life will not wait for you to be comfortable. Challenges will not ask your permission to show up. But a person with an educated mind doesn't need ideal conditions to move forward. They carry solutions within them, while others are waiting for things to get better. The educated thinker is working on a plan. They're thinking, not panicking. They're seeing possibilities, not just problems. That's the kind of mental posture that makes mountains move. And make no mistake, this isn't about being book smart. This is about wisdom. This is about training your mind to think in alignment with truth, purpose, and possibility, even when reality is screaming the opposite. A storm can wipe out your resources, but it cannot take your resourcefulness unless you let it. That's why the education of your mind is your greatest investment. When you pour truth into your thoughts, you give birth to creativity. When you develop understanding, you gain discernment. You start seeing doors where others see walls. You stop waiting for help and start becoming help. And here's the truth. Every breakthrough in history started in the mind of someone who refused to accept what they saw. They chose to think differently. They chose to believe there was another way. And because they educated their thinking, they elevated their living. Many people lose battles not because they are weak, but because they were mentally unprepared. They were emotionally reactive instead of mentally resilient. But a trained mind doesn't break under pressure. It builds. It takes the pain and pulls out a principle. It sees betrayal and extracts a lesson. It doesn't waste the experience. it converts it into fuel. That's the power of an educated mind. It turns every loss into learning and every delay into development. It understands that nothing is wasted when your thoughts are trained to extract purpose from pain. Let's be honest. Problems are not going anywhere. Life will throw things at you you didn't ask for and don't deserve. But if your mind has been educated with vision, discipline, and the courage to think beyond your environment, you will always have an advantage. That's why the most dangerous person on earth is not the one with status or strength, is the one whose mind is trained. You can strip them of position, remove their support, and deny them opportunity, but they'll still rise. Because the real power was never in what they had, it was in how they thought. So when life presents you with chaos, don't just look for escape. Engage your mind. Ask better questions. What is this teaching me? What wisdom can I apply here? What am I learning about myself? Because every moment is a classroom when your mind is prepared to learn. And once your mind becomes solution-oriented, your future becomes possibility-driven. You will stop feeling stuck, even when you're standing still, because your thoughts have already moved forward. That's the kind of power that builds nations, restores families, breaks cycles, and reshapes destinies. Your life will always reflect the level of your thinking. So, train your thoughts to see what others ignore. Teach your mind to recognize answers where others see only obstacles. And when you do, you will not just survive your circumstances, you will rise above them. If you want to change your life, you cannot start with your job, your relationships, your location, or your bank account. You must start with your thinking, because nothing in your life can consistently rise beyond the level of your thoughts. You cannot live a changed life with an unchanged mind. And this is where many people miss it. They keep trying to fix everything around them while leaving their mind untouched, untrained, and undisciplined. But the truth is, if your thoughts remain the same, your future will just be a repetition of your past in a different setting. The mind is the soil where your life grows. If you plant seeds of fear, you will harvest anxiety. If you allow negativity to take root, your life will reflect doubt, limitation, and confusion. But when your mind is renewed and educated by truth, your life starts to shift from survival to strategy, from reaction to purpose. You begin to make different choices, not because the world changed, but because you did. You begin to respond to setbacks with faith instead of frustration. You start seeing yourself not as a victim of life, but as a steward of it. That shift in thinking is what births transformation. You've probably seen people who move to a new city, get a new job, even find a new relationship. And for a while, everything looks better. But months later, they're back in the same emotional rut, repeating the same destructive cycles. Why? Because their location changed, but their thinking didn't. And until the mind is renewed, the patterns will return. That's why transformation doesn't come from external improvements. It comes from internal adjustments, specifically in how we think, process, and interpret life. Thoughts are the architects of your decisions, and your decisions shape your destiny. If you allow limiting beliefs to stay in your mind, like I'm not good enough, I'll never succeed, or this is just the way things are, then those thoughts will silently write the script of your life. You'll find yourself settling, shrinking, and surviving instead of stretching, growing, and thriving. Instead of stretching, growing, and thriving. And once you confront and replace those toxic thoughts with truth about who you are, what you carry, and what you were created to accomplish, your actions will start to align with destiny, not dysfunction. It's not enough to want change. You must think change. You must believe differently. Because a changed mind naturally produces changed behavior. This is not hype, it's a law. That's why the greatest battles are internal. The enemy knows that if he can keep your mind cluttered, he can keep your future on hold. But once you begin the process of renewing your mind, removing the lies, silencing the doubt, and planting principles, you break cycles. You stop reacting to life and start leading your life. The process isn't always easy. In fact, it's uncomfortable. Because changing your thinking requires confronting long-held beliefs, unlearning harmful mindsets, and refusing to stay in mental patterns that have become familiar but toxic. But the discomfort is temporary. The reward is transformation. When your mind is educated to think beyond your past, your decisions begin to create a future that looks nothing like where you came from. And don't wait until everything is perfect to start this process. Start now. Start with one thought. Begin to challenge the things you've believed about yourself that don't align with truth. Surround yourself with voices that speak life. Read what builds your faith. Meditate on what sharpens your purpose. And as you do, you'll notice something shift. Not just around you, but within you. You'll begin to make moves that once terrified you. You'll stop disqualifying yourself. You'll stop tolerating what used to trap you. Because the moment your thinking changes, your life begins to change with it. Pressure will always reveal the condition of your inner life. Some people crumble under it, others rise because of it. The difference is not in the pressure itself, it's in the mind that meets it. A disciplined, educated mind does not interpret pressure as punishment. It sees it as preparation. When you have trained your mind to process pressure through the lens of purpose, what once broke you now builds you. Because pressure is not your enemy, it is the evidence that something powerful is forming in you. You must understand that mental discipline is not about being robotic or emotionless. It's about establishing a level of control over your thoughts so that your feelings don't run your future. Most people don't fail because of circumstances. They fail because their mind was not prepared to endure the weight of those circumstances. They lacked the discipline to hold steady when everything around them was shaking. But the person who has trained their mind, who has developed mental structure, who feeds their thoughts with truth and filters them through vision, can stand in the middle of uncertainty and still think clearly, still decide wisely, and still move forward intentionally. Eat. Yeah, I say, yeah. There's something powerful about a mind that doesn't fold. It's like a muscle trained through repetition, resisting the weight, learning its rhythm, and getting stronger each time. That's what pressure does to a disciplined mind. It doesn't cause panic, it produces clarity. Instead of being overwhelmed, you analyze. Instead of rushing into emotion, you respond with wisdom. You begin to understand that pressure is not a reason to retreat. It's an opportunity to reveal the growth you've invested in privately. Mental discipline doesn't come overnight. It comes through consistency. It comes by saying no to every thought that doesn't align with your purpose. It comes by rejecting fear even when it screams louder than your faith. It comes by building new thought patterns intentionally, daily, and relentlessly. And the more you train your mind to respond to pressure with principles, the more you realize that pressure isn't something to avoid, it's something to master. Because once you've mastered it, you no longer fear it. You begin to embrace it. Knowing that diamonds are only produced when pressure is handled the right way. Let me ask you, how do you respond when things don't go your way? Do you collapse in frustration, or do you pause, breathe, and assess with wisdom? Do you let your emotions decide your response, or does your trained mind take the lead? The answers to these questions reveal how disciplined your thinking truly is, because pressure will always show you what's really governing your decisions, your emotions, or your principles. The truth is, every leader, every builder, every visionary must develop the mental stamina to endure resistance. If your mind is fragile, pressure will feel like an attack. But if your mind is fortified, pressure becomes a signal that you're being stretched into a new capacity. What once intimidated you now inspires you. What used to discourage you now develops you. That is the power of mental discipline. It reinterprets pressure as progress. You cannot stop pressure from coming, but you can decide how you'll meet it. And the secret is in the mind. A trained mind doesn't let frustration dominate the moment. A disciplined mind doesn't let fear dictate the next step. Instead, it draws on truth, remembers purpose, and acts with conviction. It treats every challenge as a classroom, every trial as a teacher, and every pressure as a process. That kind of thinking does more than survive, it multiplies. It doesn't retreat in hard times. It repositions. Because mental discipline doesn't just get you through pressure. It transforms you through it. Every single day, your mind is consuming something. Whether you're aware of it or not, your thoughts are being shaped by what you listen to, what you read, what you watch, and who you surround yourself with. The mind is like soil. It will grow whatever you plant in it. If you keep feeding it doubt, fear, comparison, and negativity, you will reap insecurity, anxiety, and stagnation. But if you consistently feed it truth, vision, wisdom, and faith, you will begin to see a harvest of clarity, confidence, and direction in your life. What you feed your mind will eventually shape your reality, because your life is always moving in the direction of your dominant thoughts. This is why mental education is not a one-time decision, it's a daily discipline. It's not enough to have a few positive thoughts in the morning and then let your mind wander all day through fear-filled conversations, toxic environments, or mindless distractions. You must take full responsibility for the diet of your thoughts. Just like your body responds to what you eat, your mind responds to what you dwell on. If your thoughts are constantly focused on limitations, your actions will be limited. If your thoughts are locked into the past, your future will remain hostage. But if your thoughts are focused on growth, on possibility, on purpose, then your behavior will begin to align with that mind. Think about how intentional people are with their physical health, counting calories, choosing organic, avoiding junk food. But how often do we give our minds the same level of discipline and attention? Many people are mentally overweight with worry, bloated with bitterness, and weak from a lack of truth. They feed their minds constant noise, confusion, and distractions, and then wonder why they feel stuck or powerless. Your mental health is a reflection of your mental habits, and the most powerful thing you can do is take control over what you allow into your mind. Let me be clear. What you meditate on will eventually manifest. This is why feeding your mind truth is not optional. You must make it your priority. If you don't intentionally fill your mind with what builds you, it will automatically absorb what breaks you. Culture, media, and even people close to you may feed your ideas that shrink your faith, suppress your vision, and sabotage your confidence. That's why renewing your mind is a daily war. You must fight to keep your mind aligned with your assignment. And that means protecting your focus like your future depends on it, because it does. A renewed mind doesn't just think differently. It lives differently. It speaks differently. It walks into situations others would avoid because it sees through the lens of purpose, not panic. When your mind is filled with vision, fear loses its grip. When your thoughts are fed by truth, lies lose their power. When your inner world is strong, your outer world begins to align with it. That's why some people, even in chaos, remain calm. Even in loss, they remain hopeful. Even in delay, they stay focused. Not because their life is perfect, but because their thoughts are prepared. If you want to see a different outcome in your life, don't start with your actions, start with your input. Change what you're reading. Change who you're listening to. Change the conversations you entertain. Begin feeding your mind the kind of information, inspiration, and instruction that supports where you're going, not where you've been. Every thought you feed is a seed, and it's only a matter of time before it produces a harvest. So ask yourself, what kind of reality are your thoughts building right now? Are you feeding the fear or the future? Are you nurturing your purpose or poisoning your potential? The answer lies in your mental diet, because eventually your life will look like the thoughts you've been feeding the most. Everything you desire to overcome in life, every fear, setback, limitation, or painful experience can be conquered not by external force, but by internal transformation. Your mind is not just a place of thought. It is the command center of your future. When you educate it with truth, discipline it with purpose, and feed it with vision, you become a force that circumstances cannot stop. You stop being a victim of what happens around you and start becoming a steward of what happens within you. Pressure no longer breaks you, it builds you. Delays no longer discourage you, they develop you. You begin to move through life with clarity, conviction, and courage, not because everything is easy, but because your mind has been trained to lead, not follow. Your reality will reflect your thinking, so train it, renew it, and guard it like your destiny depends on it, because it does. You have everything inside you to overcome anything outside of you. The power is already in your mind. Now it's time to unlock it. Good luck on your journey of transformation, and thank you for giving your time to grow, to think, and to believe again. Your future is not waiting for change. It's waiting for you.